Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Please I do apologize for my voice. I have been very much under the weather the past days. It turns out that if you get locked in a steel tube with a bunch of other human beings for several hours on recycled air, you catch all kind of nastiness. So yes, once again I have been flying, and once again I am very sick afterwards. The joys of compromised immune systems and long COVID. Anyway, I am going to make a video regardless. I'm just going to edit out the bits where I'm having a coughing fit. So it is time to talk about superships. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the Satsuma. Japan had, as we've been talking about multiple times, a relatively specific problem. Japan was very much devoid of natural resources, and at the same time was trying to build a navy to outcompete the Americans, who were sort of the opposite, as in they were very much having all the natural resources. So the Japanese had to think long and hard how they want to go about this, and the way they came up with was to say, well, if we can't make more ships or even match the production output of the Americans, then we're just going to make better ones. And that's how they ended up building the Yamato and the Musashi. But the Japanese weren't about to stop there. The Yamato was built very much in secret, and especially the gun caliber of 460 millimeters or 18.1 inches was kept very secret. But the Japanese were relatively certain that the Americans would discover the true capabilities of the Yamato class and would build ships to match her. So of course, what is the logical conclusion? Well, make a bigger one. I always get reminded of German tank concepts from World War II, where they eventually came up with ideas to put naval guns on land cruisers and stuff like that. There's a certain parallel in megalomaniacs just always going. Mine has to be bigger. They have to be compensating for something. Anyway, so the plans to make a bigger one were the A150 class, the successors to the Yamato, and they were supposed to be built. The original designs, first of all, gun caliber was meant to be bumped up to 510 millimeters or something 20 inches. And the initial plans were calling for 8 or even 9 guns, so 8 in 4 twins or 9 in 3 triplets. But there were several problems with that. Well, first of all, that would have made the hull significantly larger, and Japan was already out of everything. Dockyard capacity, steel, fabrication capacity for guns that caliber, and so on and so forth. All the things that are sort of necessary for the pursuit of building ships. So they compromised a little and came up with, said, okay, well, we'll just put 3 twins on them, but in return we make them 510 millimeters. The second problem that the Japanese had was that firing these guns, given to the absolute caliber these things had, put certain stresses on, people and things that generally don't like to be bounced around a lot, like sensitive equipment, because they tended to metaphorically and literally rock the boat. Which means putting too many of them caused also additional problems of not having your crew shaken to a pulp, basically, and having to provide armored shelters for them. Anyhow, by the time these were supposed to be constructed, which would have been end of World War II, the Japanese had already been pushed back, and all kinds of production priorities had been shifted towards aircraft carriers, because, as they found out the hard way, building very large battleships without sufficient air cover wasn't going to work, because aircraft carriers meant that you could attack people from ranges where they couldn't shoot back. Somewhat familiar to players of a certain Warships-based mobile game that we're talking about here. Anyway, so these never happened, so the Satsuma was obviously never built, but this would have been probably one of the earlier design drafts. So if we're just looking at the actual ship model here, this is big. This is the Yamato. The Yamato was big. This is the Satsuma. Yep, that thing is absolutely honking massive. This is, by the way, a tier 11 ship, or as Wargaming would like to call it, a supership, because we were trying to avoid the term tier 11. What do you need to know about the supership event, or the superships in general? Well, they are event ships, as in you kind of don't own them, you just purchase them for the duration of an event. Now, fortunately, the event seems to be running for a fair amount of time, so right now we seem to be going on about for 2 months. And if you are looking in the tech tree, we currently, as you can see by the little stars here, have 2 superships in the game, or 2 tier 11s. We've got the Satsuma in the Japanese tech tree, following on from the Yamato, and we have got the Annapolis in the American tech tree, following up from the Des Moines. But yeah, that's the Satsuma. Now, once you have the ship, and you have outfitted the ship for the duration of the event, because you don't get to keep it, you have to give it back afterwards, and you do get some form of refund. You then have to actually pay to use it, and this is sort of where the crux of the whole setup for super ships comes into play a little bit, because the rules are, well, the rules are a little odd. So apparently, at least from what I've seen so far, you only get one tier 11 per team. The supership battles were not supposed to have bots. They do have bots, which is contrary to what the patch notes were saying, but Wargaming has since clarified that in the devblog channel on Discord, that this is temporary and they're testing out stuff. The downside is that Matchmaker is now presented with a problem. You have somebody queuing up with a supership, but you need a second person with a supership on the other team, which means that more often than not, you end up having a bot supership to deal with. Anyway, usage. So yes, it's the mechanic from mobile games that we all love and adore. Artificial limitation of usage. Now, this is not one of those fuel things that recharges over time, or you can just pay money to get more. I think this sort of stuff was introduced back in like Candy Crush and stuff like that, where they were making stupid amounts of money from people who got addicted to these games, and then at 1 a.m. wanted to play just one more round, and then paid like 99 cents or something for it. No, it's not that sort of thing. But you literally just have to pay. It's a resource sink. It's a top tier resource sink, where what you do is you convert, you use experience from ships and silver to purchase usages. So a single usage costs 38,000 XP and 725,000 silver, and that gives you a battle. That unlocks one battle. Now, that XP can come, this works the same way that free XP conversion works. So that can come from all ships that have reached, that are fully upgraded and that have the next tier unlocked. So once that happens, once a ship is fully upgraded and has the next tier in the tech tree unlocked, you then have, so you've gained enough ship XP to unlock the next tier. Any XP you generate afterwards can be converted to free XP. So let's quickly look at that, because it's a very similar setup. So if you click on the little plus here on the free XP up top, you will find, once that loads, that you can do the exact same thing, but you can pay 1 gold, which is ridiculous, to convert 25 XP to 25 free XP. So it's the same mechanic, only here you don't do it like that. You actually convert silver and XP into supership usage permissions, basically. What if you don't have any ships that have available XP, or you run out of available XP to do this with? Then you are allowed to use free XP. So you can use free XP plus silver to go into the usage, which is, again, ridiculously expensive, because 38,000 free XP is a lot that you can do a lot of other things potentially with, like unlocking ships or retraining captains or similar things, or buying legendary modules. So it's a resource sink. There is, if we were looking at the event very quickly, there is an interesting mechanic, however, that might be quite, if I can find it, it's going to be somewhere in here. Superships. So how does it work? The unlock is reasonably cheap, 4,500 ship XP and 75,000 silver. The battle usage is much more expensive. So one usage we've just seen, 38,000 XP and 725,000 silver. So at the end of the event, XP used to research Supership will be converted to free XP at a specified ratio. But there's an awful lot of XP that's being used to research it. More interesting is the usage. So what happens is that you get, out of unused usages, you get free XP back. So if we're looking at this mechanic here, and I haven't tried this yet, this is just theory at this point, but if you're looking at this mechanic here, in order to convert ship XP into free XP, you use gold to do so, which nobody wants to do because gold is money. Now, superships theoretically allow us a separate way to use silver, which is a free in-game resource to achieve achieve a similar result. Because you could just go, and this is a little involved to get to, so you got to go to the tech tree, you got to go to the actual supership, and into the usage setup. So you could, once it loads again, you could get yourself up to 10 up to 10 usages. And you can use the ship XP and silver to get these. And if you don't use them at the end of the event, you get that, or at least a part of that, refunded as free XP. So here we have a sort of little backwards funnel that allows us to convert ship XP into free XP using silver only, rather than using gold, albeit not at the same ratio. It's not a one-to-one ratio. Anyway, enough talk about the mechanics. Let's actually talk about the ship a little bit. So the most logical comparison that we can make between the Satsuma and other Japanese ships at the tier is with the Shikishima, because the Shikishima technically should have the same guns as this thing. So what does the Supership get? She doesn't get the precise aim, as we can tell, but we get a Def AA3, which is unusual for Japanese things. We get the Scout Plane 3, which gives us a 20% range increase. So this is similar to what you get on the Italian battleships. And you get a combat instruction. And that combat instruction requires 25 main gun hits, which is doable. It's probably around about 4 salvos that you get on target if you get relatively good hits. And that reduces the shell dispersion by 35% for 10 seconds. So it's the same as the Precise Aim 2 that you have on the Shikishima or on the Yamato. And it returns, but it's only for 10 seconds. So it's only good for 1 salvo because you don't get 2 salvos out in 1 second. But what you can do is effectively after you've done 35 hits, you get a Precise Aim for 1 salvo. And you can activate it, take a moment, find a target, fire, and use it. You don't have the rush of trying to squeeze 2 salvos into a Precise Aim because there's no way you get that boosted anyway. Given that the hull is noticeably bigger, we would assume that we have a bit more hit points, and we do. It's still not an awful lot, but 66,000 instead of 60,000, and we have a little bit better armor, although we don't know the exact armor stats on these things, but the Yamato actually has, I believe, the thickest belt armor in the game. I'm not sure about the Shikishima or this thing, and we get a bit higher damage reduction. Maneuverability, as assumed for a battleship that size, is awful, but this is not a ship that you maneuver an awful lot in either. The guns is where it's all at and gets interesting. 16.04 kilometers plus the scout plane means you have an incredible range in these things. And yes, these are technically the Shikishima's guns. There is something very, very weird with superships from what we've seen so far, and that they all have problems with their fire chance. So the HE shells on the Satsuma only have a 6% fire chance, which is ridiculously low for a battleship caliber. Not that it matters, because why would you ever want to try and set fires with these? I just find it rather odd that it is set like that. Maybe it's a bug, but the guns have a slightly better range. and do a little bit more damage than the Shikishimas. And in return, you get a 1 second longer reload. But for some reason, we only get 300% citadel rate instead of the 350% on the Shikishima for the same guns, which is very, very strange. The secondaries, you could be initially tempted to say, oh my gosh, we have an Atlantico situation. No, we don't. The 203mm secondaries on the Satsuma have an almost 9-kilometer range. They do comparatively little damage though, and the penetration on the HE is god awful. So you're usually going to be doing, and you only always ever get two of them, two guns with two turrets with 2 barrels each, so 4 guns of them on target at the same time. So you're going to do 200 odd damage after damage reduction for the HE semi-pen. It's really not that great. This is not a secondary ship. If you find yourself in secondary range of anything, you're usually not doing it right, or you are fighting bots, which again is a topic that we're going to get to later. The turret traverse is surprisingly good for turrets, for Japanese turrets, but again, secondaries don't really matter, which gets us to the secret project that Wargaming has smuggled in here. So if you didn't know, Japan during the Second World War had a secret unit that was working together with the German Thule Society, and they had developed directed energy weapons. And these 100mm Type 97s were slightly misdirected from the Type 98s. These were actually laser guns. And as you can see from the damage output, these 100mm guns actually have an 806 points of alpha damage compared to the 240 more realistically that you get on actually HE explosive shells. So this high explosive damage that we're seeing here is in fact a directed energy weapon. But obviously the Japanese, being, well, still in World War II, had problems with range on these. So dissipation was, despite the attempts using German size lenses to get the lasers focused, relatively bad. Still at any range over just under 4 kilometers, the lasers tended to dissipate and not do an awful lot of damage. But if an unfortunate destroyer was finding itself in relatively close proximity, so anything under 4 kilometers of one of these ships, then it would be just melted by Japanese super lasers disguised as 100mm dual purpose guns. And of course this also explains the anti-aircraft situation, because we don't have the same damage output, just under what the Shikishima can do. We do have the defensive AA, so once they engage the laser weapons, they do a fair amount of damage to aircraft. So much for the conspiracy theory section of today's video. The concealment is, unsurprisingly, terrible. So, long story short, jokes aside, what we have here is a Tier 11 artillery platform. Very much a long-range ship that is very good at doing damage to battleships at extreme ranges and doing a lot of it. You get the choice between torpedo damage reduction and main battery. So, well, it's really not a choice. You should be going for the main battery. That's what it is. I am not actually sure if the camos get refunded as well, or if you get to keep those. But if you decided to purchase the historical camo, because these are technically different items, you can have a camo for a ship that you don't own. I have a few myself. I think I pulled one for the Incomparable out of a crate at some point. I just don't have an actual Incomparable to stick it onto. You get the regular battleship set up with range, dispersion, and hit points. Dispersion is something we're going to need to talk about later as well. You can set the ship up in a couple of ways. Main battery mod 3 is what I'm running with, simply because you mostly want to engage at extreme ranges, because A, you are somewhat special, so people will start shooting at you, and B, well, that's really where the ship shines at the end of the day. But the dispersion of the guns is not great. It can be really just hit and miss, unless you have the combat instruction running. And you get any base dispersion improvements out there that you can. Is not a bad thing to do. And I am actually using the concealment modification module because honestly, you're just going to be sitting at baseline, raining death and destruction across the map anyway for most of the battle. So you really don't necessarily need steering here that much. You could even go for air defense mod if you find that carriers are making your life too difficult here, and go for AA range increase. Not that it's necessarily going to save you, but it's going to make you feel a little better maybe. Commander-wise, quick word on the new setup I'm running. So I've played a single game with a level 11 commander, obviously, and one with fully set up legendary commander, where I am including the talents. So from now on, and from I think last video on already, since the last update, we are going to have the second maxed out battle with a maxed out commander. So when you see the little fireworks going off, that's what's happening here. Yamamoto obviously has the advantage of being able to give us an additional def AA. Unfortunately, in this case, it clashes with the Sixth Sense skill in slot 4, which is an exceedingly useful skill. But of course, that means we can't get the def AA skill. So that's kind of a little unfortunate here. There was a bit of a discussion in the comments, I believe, around generalist versus exploit weakness. Exploit weakness means you just do a little bit more damage to things that are on fire, not things that you have set on fire yourself, but things that are on fire already. Versus the generalist, which gives you a bit more, which heals you actually for 1% of your hit points, and gives you an additional fire and flooding resistance. Fire and flooding resistance, nice to have for 25 seconds. Not a massive boost in my opinion, because for a significant section of that time, especially when you're using the premium damage control, you're not going to have to be able to be set on fire and flooded anyway, because as long as the damage control is active, you're not going to get set on fire or flooded. So I'm still pretty much on the fence. I think they're still both about the same. You wouldn't take the Marksman Plus skill here, and instead you get the fully prepared, unless you shift him over from the Yamato, in which case you would just take that, but it doesn't have any impact. APCS Plus obviously is the nice one, what we want to have here. And I'm still sticking with this setup where we get 35 times, so the 35 main battery hits, we get the better turret traverse. And when we have a cause damage equal to 35% of my max HP, which should be around 30,000, which isn't an awful lot, we get 2% Citadel damage, which kind of goes nicely together with the Citadel Strike Plus. And lastly, if we manage to get 5 Citadels, we get 12% shell velocity, which is also nice to get these shells on target more reliably. So that's the setup, and 2 battles we will have. One with a regular, so set of equipment, and one with a fully maxed out one. All right, we are way over time, so let's actually get to the games. So, slight correction. When I recorded the review, I actually said that I was going to be playing 2 battles, one with a regular setup and one with a fully decked out setup. And I ended up picking 2 battles that have the fully decked out setup for a reason. These 2 battles are actually sequential, but I'm going to show them to you in reverse order. And the reason I'm doing that will become clear. The first battle is going to be the one that I played afterwards. Both the times I am facing the same player in the Supership on the other side. So this is with fully decked out Yamamoto and with premium consumables in both battles, just because I think it really demonstrates nicely both certain aspects that I wanted to talk about. Let's get into it. Domination Typhoon's Eye, we are playing against an Annapolis on the enemy team. Schlieffen Yamato, Shikishima, Austin, and Shimakaze. I think the Shikishima was actually on sale, so they went all in on the big gun Japanese battleship sort of idea. And Yeah, so playing this game consumes 38,000 XP and 725,000 silver. Oh, well, let's make the most of it. Now, this is very, very much a ranged artillery platform. So you do not wish to push forward. We've got the Z-52, who is going to hopefully scout and take A and B, or take A and scout B. And I've got a St. Vincent with me, who is a battle cruiser, who also probably does not wish to play very much forward. So I'm just going to inch a little forward, and you see that my base range on these guns actually already covers B-Cup. So I'm comfortably within my range. I've got a scout plane to boost it up by another 20%. And that means from here on, with almost 17 kilometer base range, I'm actually in a relatively good position. Plus we've got hit points up to 70,000 with camo, consumables and everything else. Obviously a destroyer in B. We don't know yet if it is the Shimakaze, so I'm just inching forward here and getting ready to fire support once the Z-52 has spotted something. And there is the enemy, Annapolis, having found himself in open water, fully broadsiding. So I am somewhat hesitant to shoot at him here, and that's because this is already the second battle. So you'll see what I mean later on. But yeah, that's what, and yes, we are having Shimakaze on this side. That's what a Satsuma can do to you. And that's why I'm trying to aim at the Schlieffen, because I feel bad for the player in the Annapolis who just spent 38,000 XP and 725,000 silver and ends up fully broadsiding in front of my guns again. So we're unloading at the Schlieffen instead, and we already managed to do the amount of damage for the first talent to activate. Now I am firing at the Schlieffen here, but unfortunately my dispersion is relatively wonky, and I end up hitting him in the Annapolis. I am really sorry if you see this. I really tried not to actually shoot, not actually to sink you. I was aiming at the Schlieffen, but you kind of all bumped into each other there. Okay, that's the Annapolis dealt with. There's a Shimakaze out there. So we are sort of in control here. I'm not sure what our Z-52 is doing all the way back here. He should be, now that the Annapolis is gone, he should be in a relatively good position. And yes, he is going back and he is going aggressive. I'm not sure where that torpedo came from, honestly. Was that a Shimakaze torpedo from somewhere? Or could have been a Schlieffen torpedo. There sits a Yamato, fully broadside, but there is an Austin. Now 16 kilometer Austin, and I should be able to do some serious damage to that thing. The problem is the Austin is a cruiser. Yeah, there are more Schlieffen torpedoes, I think. And you know, by the time the shells have reached the Austin has moved, which means they've all fallen into the water and not done anything. So as tempting as it is to blab cruisers out of the water, if they're not sitting still at this range, it's not really helping. So scout plane up for better angles here. I don't really need it for the range at this point. I have the range, but I just want to see what I'm shooting at here. And there we go, Citadel on the Yamato. Unfortunately, we don't get the 350% modifier for some obscure reason. And Schlieffen is out there somewhere, but I would like to get that Yamato killed over there. So unfortunately, my scout plane is now no longer there. Which again, I didn't need it for the range. I needed it for the firing angles. But we're controlling all 4 capture circles. So and we are 2 kills ahead. So, that means I think we can go and have some fun, because we haven't even used the heal yet. And that St. Vincent is obviously somewhat cautious about rushing the Schlieffen, given that he's taking fire from the right side. The Z-52 can have some fun with the battleship sailing in a straight line at the edge of the map over there. But I am going to go after the Schlieffen for now, if I can actually see the bugger. German battleships or German battle cruisers are very, very sneaky. And once my scout plane comes off cooldown, I can actually fire at the 2 ships over there as well, because right now they are just outside my 17 kilometer range. I have the precise aim skill ready, so I'm undetected. Z has launched. Skill up. You don't have to target immediately. You can choose your targets, and shots out there, because I've seen the torpedoes going in for the Yama, so I didn't want to steal his kill there. If he gets the kill, Yama has a good torpedo damage reduction, but I'm leaving that one to the Z. I didn't want to reduce his damage that he does. But now that the Yamato is on low hit points, we're going to get another salvo out. Unfortunately, I'm not having the plane up anymore. It doesn't matter. The Yamato is in range, but Yamato pulls an emergency stop by using network lag, and and that my shells still hit though. And now we are in brawling range of a Schlieffen, which is generally a terrifying prospect. That's where the Japanese laser guns come into effect. And we've won this game anyway, so I might as well have some fun here. Yeah, you have torpedoes. Oh look, you managed to torpedo me. Let's see if you survive this. So one more Citadel would have done it. Let's just get under 4 kilometers so I can get my laser guns on target. There we go. Now the auto secondaries are opening up, and there comes the damage. Poof, poof. Come on, Schlieffen. You think you can brawl? You think you tough? I got you now. And there goes the Schlieffen. Okay, that's mission accomplished. Now whatever Shikishima or whatever is back there can kill me. Yep, Shikishima does it. That was just for the fun of it, to get the 100mm directed energy weapons from the secret Japanese-German Thule Society Corporation project underway. And Z is rushing to Shikishima. Not sure what entirely he was planning there, but the game's over anyway. We've reached 1,000 points. And that was a lazy 121,000 points of damage. That's sort of what this looks like when you're playing in this thing. And yeah, once again, my commiserations to the player Indianapolis. I am really sorry, I did not try to actually kill you. But okay, that first salvo, that meant we're still playing, but you know. Let's go to the second battle. So this was the game that I played right before the one you've just seen. And this very much exemplifies the problem with the Supership event. Because I don't care. Because I'm playing this on my press account. I don't actually use my own resources. The player over there, Indianapolis, is who appears to be a fan of Red October. And yes, you get to fanfic as Submarine. Don't worry, I'll help with that. But he spent 38,000 XP, or potentially even free XP, and 725,000 silver for what effectively is a bot game. Because we're playing Domination on Friar's Lantern, and the only non-bot player is the other Supership. And that, in my opinion, is one of the bigger problems that we currently have. Now, according to the patch notes, and according to Wargaming's release, that is temporary for testing purposes. I'm not entirely sure what they're testing and collecting data here on, but there shouldn't be any bots in Supership games, which means that this would have been a one-on-one, which would have been much, much better. Because I believe that a skilled Annapolis player can absolutely wreck a Satsuma without too much trouble. And there are going to be some really interesting consequences of these sort of matchups. But I just feel like if you spend this much resources, and this is not easy to get, right? 38,000 XP is not a little. And you end up effectively just shooting at bots. You feel cheated a bit. And I would feel cheated. And I would basically say, nah, you know what? Nah, screw that. And the usual matchmaking problems come into effect as well. I've had games where we had a full server queue, and matchmaking after 2 seconds decided to throw me into a bot game. Anyway, we have the Alexander Nevsky to shoot at from over there. So let's re-enable the lock-on and actually get some shots on target. And I am keeping my eye open for the Annapolis. Remember, this was the first game that I played. Yep, and this is what happens. Lazy 12,000 just from 5 hits onto a Nevsky. Could have been better, but it's a good start. And there's the Annapolis. Hello, Mr. Annapolis. You are fully broadsiding, but he has realized the error of his ways, and he goes turning in, maybe a little bit. Or is he turning out again? Oh no, dear, he's turning out again. Shots out, and let's see what that does. And dispersion, if you don't have the skill active, can be a bit wonky, but 5 on target's not bad. Let's get the secondaries to work. 200mm secondaries with HE does absolutely nothing. So yeah, the secondaries, they look big on paper, but they're a bit laughable. Anyway, we have bots to shoot at and damage to farm. Hello, Mr. Republik. Let's get manual aim at the deck plating, although yeah, that was a good dispersion salvo, and very unlucky that with the citadels here. But I'm now shielded from the Annapolis, and there is a bot coming around the corner. I think it's a bot Montana. So that's thing's going to take our attention next. But we can engage the laser guns at this range relatively easily. So let's try to finish off the Republik. And yeah, I think he's just gonna burn down. So we can already shift to the Montana. Hello, Mr. Montana. Obviously, at this range, fully broadside is not going to be. The Montana can do a fair amount of damage to me as well. So I do have to be the bot or not if he fires here. Yeah, there you go. That was just the forward turrets with the armor piercing. So if you're unlucky and the bot engages the armor piercing, then that's not great. But as you can see, the auto secondaries are actually doing, the laser guns are doing way more damage than the 203mm main guns. It's 203mm secondaries. But there comes the Annapolis. So I'm just going to ignore the Monty for now, because I have an Annapolis to shoot at more or less point blank range. So precise aim up and shots out. Annapolis has just unloaded his funny button. And that's a double citadel on the Annapolis. Yes, that is why you don't do this kind of thing, because you've just shot all your powder and done a fair amount of damage to me. I give you that, but yeah, you're now out of. I'm now going to reload faster than you. So before you get your next salvo off, but I'm reloaded as well. And there he goes. He has still the button active, but he is now dead, and he has not managed to do damage fast enough to me. Which means the bot Montana that we've now ignored or left to our laser gunners here needs to be dealt with. And we should have enough hit points. We've got a heal coming off cooldown, so that should be sufficient to deal with that Monty. And there he goes. Pop the Monty. And that just leaves 2 more bots, and we can finish those up. So while we're watching that fun and engaging gameplay of me killing a couple of bots here, super ships, are they worth it? Well, they are tier 11s. They're literally just a logical progression of a tier 10 ship. They are better than the tier 10s. Just be aware that you do have to pay for using them, which I am again not certain if that's a great idea. The matchmaking can really get because the matchmaking can really throw a spanner in the works there and make things really awkward, because you end up just playing against bots. And you have to pay resources, quite a bit of resources, to play against bots. Now, if you are a player that a very frequent player, and you're basically going like, yeah, I have so much silver and so much ship XP that this doesn't matter to me at all, because this is a drop in a bucket for me, then yes, go and enjoy the super ships. I think they're fun. They're not outrageously overpowered. And they have their counters, but they're fun ships to play. They don't really break the game in any way. And if you have the resources anyway, if you're a relatively new player and you've just gotten your first tier 10, and you're still only halfway through actually upgrading your captain, and you want to play super ships, just be aware of the resources that you have to spend for doing so. And if you can't spare the resources, just be aware that you might end up in a bot game, and it might feel like a bit that you were cheated out of your resources there. So this is just a mechanic to be aware of. Other than that, it's a fun ship. It has an incredible amount of firepower, and it's with the precise aiming up. It is very precise. It has a very long range. It's an artillery ship, so it's not super difficult to play, and it shares the same problem that you have normally with artillery ships, which is that you can't carry games easily. Your main targets are enemy battleships or cruisers in mid-range that are unfortunately broadsiding, but don't waste your shots on other targets. So that is the Satsuma in a nutshell, and yeah, I think it's a fun addition to the game. As long as you can spare the resources. And again, I don't know, I haven't tested that yet, but it sounds like there might be a little backdoor to convert ship XP to free XP using silver. And that's always a nice bonus. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now because my voice is about to give out. That's it for me today. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.